Hello, this is Katie Welch, and I am here to talk to you about school-based mentoring programs. And I want to specifically address the community of the Ray-Pec School District, which is the school district that my children attend. It's kind of a personal tie to me and my family. And the reason why I chose this community and really this topic of school-based mentoring programs is because my daughter just began attending the middle school in the Ray-Pec School District, and within the first 2 months of her sixth grade school year, there was a young man in that middle school who unfortunately chose to take his own life. So the subject of suicide came up, and one of the things that the community, Ray-Pec School District, did was to really just rush in, kind of offer counseling and mentoring to the students, which really got me thinking about the importance of those programs. So one of the things I want to do is to basically kind of give an outline of, what mentoring programs are available, the benefits of those programs, structuring them correctly, and then also how to improve and increase the amount of participation and engagement in those programs. And what I really want to drill down to is the importance of and the benefit of increasing the engagement and involvement, just based on creating an atmosphere and an environment that is safer and more stable for the students in that community. So what I want to do is start off by just presenting what's available currently. And for the elementary students or the elementary schools, there are programs like Tiger Buddies that are actually put together by the school staff. They're very individual to each elementary school. However, there's also in the middle school, there is Big Brothers and Big Sisters Casey. They partner with that program, which is a national program. It's probably familiar to most. It serves thousands of students across Kansas City. So for our school, they partner middle school students with adult volunteers and really work with them on improving, relationship with adults and also improving academic and behavioral outcomes for at-risk students. One of the things that I really wanted to touch on is just some of the research that I've done in properly structuring a school-based mentoring program. There are some very interesting studies done on really how to put together an effective program. The first thing I want to touch on is just the importance of relationship closeness between a mentor and a mentee. And I want to reference a study called School-Based Mentoring Programs Using Volunteers to Improve the Academic Outcomes of Underserved Students. This was led by a researcher, Amanda Bayer, and she said to determine whether SBM, which is school-based mentoring programs, works primarily through the connection of the mentee feels with the mentor rather than through other more direct processes such as engaging the child in academic activities. And basically what she's saying is it's really important that the mentor and the mentee develop a relationship, not just focus on the mentee's academic abilities. And her study goes on to find that there is a positive relationship between increased relationship closeness or that friendship, that kind of breaking down the walls and feeling more connected to one another, and that increases the effectiveness of the program and of the outcome of that mentorship. Another study done by Sarah Schwartz was all about the importance of timing correctly timing the mentorship. So her study looked at students who met with their mentor during lunch hours or before after school, based compared to students who met with their mentors during school hours, during class time hours. And one of the things that I found fascinating is that at-risk students who are typically what make up mentor programs actually had a negative effect or a negative relationship with mentoring programs that took place during class time hours, which was not necessarily surprising to me that it would be the case, that if you take them out of their traditional classroom, that they would, even though they're getting this wonderful mentorship, that it would still have a negative effect on their overall outcomes. Just the importance of being in class, present with the teacher, is definitely something that school-based mentoring programs want to make sure that they focus on, maintaining that classroom integrity. And then also, the last thing I want to touch on, just on structuring properly, is parental involvement. There's a study done by Renee Spencer and Antoinette Basoldo del Monaco, and I apologize, called Family Involvement in Youth Mentoring Process, a focus group study on program staff. This study was very interesting in that it focused on mentors who were paid mentors, which is not the typical, but it also allowed them to look at mentors who are more dedicated and spend a lot more time and involvement. But they were actually able to do a greater amount of connection to the family of the mentee, and that they found, there's a quote that said, a central theme evident across all focus groups was a strong belief that the success of many mentoring matches was dependent, at least in part, upon the involvement of the youth's parents in some way. And I thought that was very interesting that I know as a volunteer mentor, you don't necessarily always have the chance to get involved with the mentee's parents or parental structure. And I thought it was very interesting that they found a very positive connection between those two, or between, a mentor being able to connect with the family unit and increasing the success of the mentorship program. And the next thing I wanted to go into is just kind of the benefits of the program. A couple of really interesting studies found that a couple of different just a couple of different ways that programs really assist and help with students in being able to be more successful in life, not just in school, but in life. And one of those was a study done called Relational Experiences in School-Based Mentoring. And this was done by Stella Kenshua. And she found that this was a study of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America programs throughout the U.S., and it basically looked at teacher-reported behavioral evidences of rejection sensitivity. And this was something that that the study author actually went into a lot of detail. This rejection sensitivity, it was basically the student's ability to handle and manage rejection, and went into looking at children who do not get stable, trusting, loving relationships in their earlier formative years, grow up to have this high rejection sensitivity, which affects their basic emotional stability. And one of the things they said is, in some cases, such perceptions, this high rejection sensitivity, can inhibit the youth's capacity to assert their own needs and also to establish productive, trusting relationships with peers, teachers, and so on. And that's something that they're really looking at the effect of school-based mentoring to be able to kind of reverse the effects and outcomes of this high rejection sensitivity that comes from a rougher childhood without those stable, loving relationships. And another thing was a study done about self-regulated learning. The study was done by Jose Carlos Nunez, and the article is called a Longitudinal Assessment of the Effectiveness of School-Based Mentoring Programs in Middle School. And I found this very interesting because it focused solely on middle school students. And he basically said that these self-regulated learning strategies, which were like goal setting, note-taking, self-monitoring, and such, school-based mentoring actually was able to increase the self-regulated learning strategies and tools in students and basically set them up to be more independent and successful on their own. So a couple of the things that I want to talk about just in trying to increase engagement and involvement in school-based mentoring programs is basically for the program administrators to understand mentor motivation, so to know how to speak to or market to mentors. And one of the things that I found, a study that I found very, very interesting was this by Davia LeKind actually did this a study on the perception, on mentors' perceptions of youth and the effect that those perceptions had, and how basically school-based mentoring programs can really help mentors to set appropriate expectations going into volunteering to be a mentor, and how that can play a huge role and effect on the success of their time in the mentoring program. And then also another study about volunteer motivations and benefits was done by Paul Caldarella. And he actually said individuals volunteer in order to express important values such as humanitarian concern and altruism, and also understanding the value of understanding others, which addresses the need for individuals to seek learning experience that will help them better understand themselves and others, and just trying to understand really what motivates a mentor to take that step to volunteer, to be able to harness their, what they're seeking to benefit themselves, and in turn get them to volunteer going forward, like continuing on in their volunteer efforts rather than burning out. And I think the more success you can have with your mentors in a program, the greater success rate you have, not just in keeping them, but also recruiting other mentors. So I think it's very important to, in just, advertising and marketing a school-based mentoring program, to be able to increase the engagement and involvement. It's important to understand really what motivates mentors to get involved. So really just in conclusion, just my thesis is the importance of increasing engagement and involvement in school-based mentoring programs, specifically in my community, or the community of the Ray-Pec School District, and really in all schools, to be able to, positively affect the lives of at-risk students, and then thereby improving the environment and the stability of the students in the entire school. If you lift up those that are troubled, you're going to lift up the entire overall atmosphere of the school, which makes them safer and more stable.